Hello and welcome to CCTV Channel 17. Here today we have distinguished guests from Pathway, Vermont, and then we'll be talking about an amazing training coming up for BIPOC people, decolonizing death and suicide. It will be for BIPOC. So this is Alice Corner, and this show is every single month on the third Tuesday of every month right here at CCTV Channel 17. We are delighted to have such a great resource in our community to talk about things that affect us on a daily basis, our state, our nation, and also our world, right? So without further ado, I'll be allowing our guests from Pathway, Vermont to introduce themselves, and we will start with Mr. Alex. Can you introduce him?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, Ali. My name is Alexander. I am a father, educator, and advocate. I have worked for Pathways Vermont since 2013 in various roles, such as the Pathways Community Center and the Vermont Support Line. I currently work for what's called the Peer Workforce Development Initiative and Pathways Vermont's Training Institute. And through this, I've really harnessed and witnessed, and now I'm sharing what's called the transformative power of peer support. So that's a little bit about me. I'll also put the plug in. I am currently the board chair of the Richard Kemp Center as well.
Okay, amazing. So Jay?
All right, my name is Jay Helms. I go by they, them pronouns. I'm Director of Training and Advocacy at Pathways Vermont. I'm also an educator, an advocate, writer, and psychiatric survivor. I've worked at Pathways since 2019. Prior to working in this training role, I was a service coordinator on one of our Housing First Act teams. And prior to that, I worked as a peer support advocate at HCRS, which is the designated agency in Southern Vermont, Windham and Windsor counties. In this role as Director of Training and Advocacy, I work with Alex for Vermont's Peer Workforce Development Initiative, as well as our Pathways Vermont Training Institute. Through the Peer Workforce Development Initiatives, we offer trainings to folks who are working in peer support roles, as well as folks working in a variety of roles across the state. Our trainings focus on intentional peer support, as well as other topics like conversations about suicide, decolonizing conversations about death and suicide, which we're here to talk about today. We offer trainings about harm reduction, relationship-first approach to extreme states, other peer support related trainings. And we're going to talk to you a bit about peer support today, and then specifically the training that Ali and Alex developed together, decolonizing conversations about death and suicide.
Excellent, wonderful. Jay, but your name is like just one letter.
That's right.
And what's the origin of it?
Oh, sure. So I'm non-binary, and I changed my name several years ago. And when I was trying to decide on a name, I just went with the first letter of my old name. And I thought about spelling it out, J-A-Y, but I thought that just the letter J worked best for me, so that's what I stuck with.
Okay. I mean, sometimes if I want to remember your name, I'm like L-M-N-O-P-Q-R-S-K.
Sure.
Mr. Alex, you talked about something, transformative power. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, peer support we see as this opportunity to shift narratives, and one thing that has been so prevalent within the mental health system for a long time is this dominant narrative. It's very individualistic. It's very much isolating of individuals, right? Rather than community focused. So when we're talking about this transformative power, it's really about transforming systems, transforming society, transforming ourselves. And really looking about how can we connect together and focus on the human experience, right, that we share together in this moment.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. Pathway Vermont, what we know about Pathway is they don't just provide trainings for people.
That's right.
But can you tell me a little bit more about Pathway in general?
Sure. I can start us off. Yeah. So Pathways operates a Housing First program that's statewide, so we provide permanent supportive housing to folks across various counties in Vermont. Through that program, we also have a partnership with the Department of Corrections, supporting folks who are leaving incarceration and would be homeless. So we have this transitional housing program to support folks who are leaving incarceration. We also support other folks who are justice involved. We also have peer support programs. So we operate a statewide peer support warm line called the Pathways Vermont Support Line. We have a community center here in Burlington. We operate a Soteria house here in Burlington, which is a 5-bed residential program for folks who are experiencing extreme states, or what's sometimes referred to as early episode psychosis. We also just opened a peer respite in Chittenden County. It's a 2-bed peer respite, and so it's a short-term stay, usually about a week or less, where folks who are really in a lot of distress or in crisis come and receive peer support in a setting with people with lived experience. Across all of our programs, we hire staff who have relevant lived experience. So many of our staff have themselves been psychiatrized or received diagnoses, have received mental health services. Some folks have experienced homelessness before, some folks have been justice involved, some folks have experienced food insecurity, various types of trauma and other experiences, challenges with substance use. And we really value hiring folks with those lived experiences because we find, as Alex was talking about, the transformative power of peer support, that when we're really able to connect with each other in a human-to-human way, that makes a real difference in the services and supports that we provide.
That's amazing. It's a lot, right? It's a
It
lot,
is.
but all really important. And I think these are type of services that organization offer that many people don't talk about much.
Yeah.
Because when you're not affected, you don't understand, you don't know. But also, I like the angle of just hiring people with lived experiences who definitely understand deeply,
Yes.
right, in order to support others and lift them up. Alex, this is you wanna add, you know?
Yeah,
And
I
when,
mean-
when you joined the organization, like.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, sort of introducing myself, I started this work in 2013, right? And I started off as a volunteer. I started off originally just walking in what's now the community center, cooking community meals and just connecting with people. And from there, you know, I just got hooked. I saw the mission. I saw that there was something bigger happening here. And I also learned more about Housing First. And I just want to put that plug in for Housing First because I know throughout the state we're experiencing a housing crisis. And I just want to, you know, name that, you know, Pathways Vermont, our mission is to end homelessness and to provide innovative mental health alternatives. We firmly believe, and I firmly believe, that housing is a human right. And, you know, I believe that both housing and healthcare are basic human rights that should be guaranteed to all without judgment or bias.
Wow, that's great. And you know, all of these great programs, how are you funded in general, this organization? Like,
Yeah, we receive a variety of different types of funding. I'm realizing I did not mention our mental health urgent care program, which is a new program that just started last fall. So it's a collaboration with the University of Vermont and the Howard Center, and maybe one other community partner. I'm not remembering right now, Alex. Maybe you'll remember as we're thinking about
Yeah.
it. But so this collaboration, so it's at UVM, the medical center, and so folks who are experiencing mental health distress of whatever kind they might describe it as, go to the urgent care, and they can receive more traditional clinical support if that's what they're looking for. Though we also have peer support staff there who are trained in intentional peer support as well as a variety of other peer support trainings there to provide support to folks who are in various types of distress or crisis. And so the funding for these different programs, we receive some private funding for some of our peer support programs. We also receive funding from the Department of Mental Health for some of our peer support programs. Our Housing First program, we receive funding through Medicaid. We bill through Medicaid. We also receive funding from the Department of Corrections for the program that I mentioned, that transitional housing program. So a variety of state and federal funding as well as some private foundations.
yeah. I can't imagine how this work is challenging. One, especially around housing, because two elements of your work is healthcare, mental health, and also homelessness. And how hard it is to just find an apartment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're competing all the time with a lot of available units. I cannot just imagine how. And on top of all of this, you guys provide a lot of great trainings, not only about decolonizing death and suicide, which is why we're here, but which I believe is funded by the federal government. Can you tell us a little bit? And also, what is this training is about? Yeah.
I'll pass it over to Jay, and just as we unpack this, the, how this began, right? Like how this training began is through a grant through the Center for Health and Learning. But prior to that, we had a training at Pathways, which Jay helped to develop, called Conversations About Suicide. Would you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'll talk a bit about that. And yeah, to mention where we get the funding, so we partner with a Vermont-based organization called the Center for Health and Learning. They do a lot of various types of work to promote mental health across the state of Vermont. One of their projects is the Vermont Suicide Prevention Center, which is a resource sharing network and really connects different folks with different trainings and education to really provide better suicide care across the state of Vermont. They are very invested in peer support approaches and have supported our efforts to bring peer support trainings to people who are providing care to folks who are considering suicide. And the specific grant that we are getting from the Center for Health and Learning is through a CDC Health Equity grant that they have access to and have some funding from. And that's what we use specifically to develop the training that you and Alex developed, Decolonizing Conversations About Death and Suicide. And I'll first talk about the sort of foundational training, Conversations About Suicide. So we started developing this training several years ago, I think 2018, 2019, somewhere in there, because we wanted to provide a peer support training accessible to folks in Vermont, specifically about how we support people who are considering suicide. There are other trainings that we are inspired by and that we give credit to in that training, including intentional peer support, which we've already mentioned. Alex and I are both trainers in intentional peer support. We also take inspiration from Alternatives to Suicide, which was developed by our friends at the Wildflower Alliance in Western Massachusetts. Alex and I are both people who've taken the Alternatives to Suicide training and can facilitate groups for Alternatives to Suicide. What we wanted was to create a training that was about one-to-one peer support and how we really show up for people who are considering suicide in a way that doesn't take away control, that doesn't take away their rights. And in order to do that, we have to really be comfortable with tolerating a lot of discomfort, with really being curious about how people are making meaning out of their experiences, and really shifting away from what we understand to be a fairly medicalized approach to suicide. Under a typical sort of medical model of mental illness, suicide is typically considered as this problem that needs to be solved or fixed somehow. And usually that approach involves some amount of coercion or force, trying to get people in hospital or maybe to start taking medication or see a therapist. And while some people certainly find medication, therapy, hospitals beneficial to themselves, what we find is that that can't be the only approach, and that especially when it involves taking control away, that just really doesn't work for people and is often further traumatizing. So what we want to do is shift the perspective. So rather than thinking about suicide as the problem, we instead understand that when someone is considering suicide, they're likely responding to a problem or a series of problems, that they are maybe traumatized, that things have happened to them and around them, that they're experiencing some sort of grief, maybe they're experiencing job loss, maybe they're about to be homeless, maybe they're experiencing intense racism, maybe they're experiencing intense xenophobia, right? Like there's all sorts of experiences, queerphobia, transphobia, classism, misogyny, all these different experiences that people have that make it really difficult to be alive. And so generally our conversations about suicide training has always been about restoring the context to a person's experience of the world, restoring the context to their suicidality, really trying to understand what's going on in this person's life, what's happening for them, what kind of support are they looking for specifically, not what do providers think they need, but what does this person think that they need. And in that way, it's always been rooted in social justice. And so in a lot of ways, I think the decolonizing training just sort of morphed out of that fairly naturally. And the way that it came about is a couple of years ago, we got a request from the Center for Health and Learning asking us if we would ever consider delivering our training specifically to BIPOC Vermonters, to folks who are Black, Brown, Indigenous, and/or people of color. If we'd consider delivering that, and also if we'd consider developing a training specifically around the experience of people of color who are also considering suicide or thinking about death. And we thought that that made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense to try and figure that out. I think that something that Alex and I have observed, even just in the peer support world, honestly, is that in the state of Vermont, obviously, majority white state, the peer support world looks like that as well. Oftentimes, Black folks, brown folks, Indigenous folks are left behind in the peer support world. And so we wanted to make sure that there was a training that really addressed that and also addressed the specific sort of different experiences that had more cultural awareness of what like different folks from different places and different identities and experiences, what might actually be meaningful and valuable to them in services. And so with that, I think, Alex, I'll pass it to you to talk a bit about the decolonizing training.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jay. I mean, you know, this was a big ask, right? And a part of me at the time, I was like, ooh, are we just checking a box? I was like, I can't do that personally. So through grapevines, I started doing some research. I started doing some digging and just bigger picture thinking about the mental health system, like what's my experience in mental health system, what's other individuals' experiences on a macro level. So then on a micro level, I started thinking about my relationships in this community. And so I connected with longtime friend here, Ali, and we started talking about it. I thought about Ali's connections, in the community, and I was like thinking about my own connections. I said, combined, I know we can do something, right? So you and I just started meeting over the course of some weeks after some discussion about this.
At least 3 months, every week. Yeah.
And it started happening. We started building some content together. Really, it was just, I think we came to this realization that I was like, we can't just have this training where we're teaching people. It needed to be this community conversation. So as we started building this content, we realized we just had to ask questions. We just had to learn from people. What is the cultural context? How do you conceptualize death? How do you conceptualize suicide? What are your faiths and beliefs when someone dies? And I know one question we asked is, and it really hit home for me, is, do you feel that you're a member of the community you live in? And, from there, I feel like we had such a magical, but it was a hard experience. And I just want to name, you were going through a lot at that time as a city councilor, and it was October 2023 when we started this.
Yes. I mean, it was such a great experience, and from my perspective, developing it, I had to learn something about myself too, because of the conversation and things that I never thought of. I think the training helped me myself to be like, oh, okay, And I think, Jay, what you just stated also, I mean, there is a similar training that you talked about, which is conversation about suicide, right? But this one is decolonizing death and suicide. And again, the angle was just, let's have a discussion with the people. I think it was interactive, and people who attended the training, to tell you the truth, I mean, it was therapeutic to them. You can feel it, you can hear it, and some of them were sharing things that they said, I will never share this anywhere, because you created a space, right, in which I feel comfortable to talk about this. Things that I experienced with my parents, right, who are dying right now, things that I'm experiencing with the work that I do on earth, with my garden, with all of it. It was just so alive and so great. But, again, for the Center of Health and Learning, thank you so much for thinking outside the box, working with these great people to put this together. And we need to see more of these, right? Jay, what you just talked about also, that most of the time, people of color, BIPOC, are always forgotten, right? But the great work that you do is now bringing them in the forefront and just working with people who live it, who know it, who understand it, in order to, bring solution about our problems, right? Thank you for doing it. So it seems there was first session, and now a second session is coming up, right?
Right.
But, can you tell us when is it, where is it, and how it's going to work this time? Who can sign up, where to sign up, and all of it?
Sure thing. I mean, so our next training will be on April 11th. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and we're going to be holding it at the Richard Kemp Center.
April 11,
Yeah.
starting at 10, at the
Richard Kemp Center.
Richard Kemp Center,
Yeah.
right here in Burlington.
Right.
Wow. I mean, it's the space itself is just therapeutic too, right? And you
Exactly.
see how you making new connections now.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is great. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Richard Kemp Center, but I just want to, highlight, this is the only Black-run, Black-owned community space in the state of Vermont, and the mission is services that support Black Vermonters, their wellness, preserve their culture, support the youth, and advance racial equity and justice. And so for me, it just made complete sense to reach out to them, to build this connection even stronger. And yet again, I think we'll just have a community conversation. And I really want to touch on, the importance, like thinking about, when we're thinking about decolonizing, right? This goes back to Indigenous people. This goes back to, First Nations people. But there's no separation there when we're talking about that as well. When I speak about Indigenous people, I'm speaking globally, right? And on that level, I think it's so important when we're talking about mental health that we're thinking about a cultural context, right? There are many different ways that people see the world. There are many different ways that people see themselves and see others. And so we have to shift the mental health system. We have to shift the way we view mental health.
This is great. This is great. This is amazing, and I think there is an element of healing too. I mean, and there is an element of also, whenever we talk about BIPOC people, they're not the same people.
Yeah.
We cannot say just okay, you Black people or you Native people. No, within the Black people there are communities, and that's what I like about the training too. We were also sharing the experiences of people who are newcomers, right? And I think this training also is like a living organism. It can change, it can adapt to also what is happening and what people are feeling for their mental health and also for their being, right? And currently we know about immigration rhetorics. I'm pretty sure all of those but the people that you serve, Jay, and the work that you do, are you also evolving and adapting with what's happening around you and around the world? Or this is just a set mission and this is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are doing our best to adapt and really think about, both as an organization at Pathways, what is it? What is the difference that we're trying to make? What does that work really look like? And I think that with our training specifically, we are always adapting. We're realizing that there are different ways we can talk about ideas, something that we are trying to address and that Alex has done a lot of work on is to really recognize that there's so many peer support frameworks that have been really white-centric. So even just doing our work to shift that, to bring in different voices in the training space, as well as making sure that the resources that we use are not all created by white people, right? That we are using resources from different folks of different backgrounds and different experiences. And yeah, I think that generally the way that we are holding space in trainings has been shifting, right? I think for the past year and a half, there's been an ongoing genocide in Palestine that we have absolutely talked about. Since the administration change a couple of months ago, that has impacted so many of us, including the three of us here, right? As well as many community members. And so it'd be strange if we didn't talk about it in our trainings. It'd be strange if it didn't come up. We do talk about it, it does come up. And we're constantly trying to figure out how to shift and think about how we're supporting folks, how we're meeting them where they are, and how, something that's on my mind today as we're talking about decolonizing conversations about death and suicide is that there's a young girl in Texas who ended her life because she was an immigrant and worried about being deported just within the last couple of months, right? So the landscape is also changing, right? And I think it's important for us to think about how are we meeting folks where they are, how are we trying to understand their stories. And, you know, I think part of our work, and I know that it's something that Alex and I are invested in, that part of these trainings about how we support people considering suicide is about how do we support each other one-on-one, but also how do we build communities, how do we build a world that's more survivable, that takes into account the needs of everyone, not just the needs of people with the most privilege and power. And it's a lot to figure that out, right? I think we are constantly shifting, trying to think like, what does that look like in our work? What does it look like? How do we do it? You know, in our training, so much of that is about, you know, in a one-to-one way, how do we show up differently? How do we truly try to understand what's going on for this particular person, how they're making meaning, the things that have happened to them in their life, the trauma that they've endured. And I think even by doing that, making more space for those stories, I think that does change things little by little, just making more space for people's stories.
Absolutely.
Right, because so often, right, focus when we're talking about, you know, prevention or intervention, the focus is just stopping the thing from happening, right? We need to stop this immediately versus, I don't know, exploring what's going on for that person beneath the surface. Or maybe actually it isn't even a problem that has to do with you or has to do with me. Maybe the problem is the system. Maybe the problem is society, right?
Yep, yep. Just like the saying, if a duck enters a lake, right, and get out of the lake and bark, don't ask what's happening with what happened with the duck, what happened in the water.
Absolutely.
What is in the water? So that analogy about the system need to be deconstructed in some ways and rebuilt, right? Because most of the time, like you guys are saying, that basically these tables are already set, and most of the time we are invited to come, right? But I think it's about time for all of us to come together and build a new table, right? Instead of just, okay, this is my table, but come and tell me, no, let's take it all down, rebuild it if we're really serious, right? And I think the what you just shared about that new immigrant, I mean, you know, about suicide, and about it's coming back. Many people are taking their life because sometimes it's just by honor. They want to honor something. Some people are with guilt. Other people is just judgment. You know, you live here, you know here, you don't understand what people are saying. Yep. Yep. What people are talking about in terms of, you know, where you come from and when you go back, you don't know what people are going to be saying. You know, so to the training again. Will there be food, right? And will there be ethnic food?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have some catering. We'll have coffee. You know, we'll take good care of people. So you can sign up via our Eventbrite page through the Peer Workforce Development Initiative. You can email us at peerworkforce@pathwaysvermont.org.
Yeah, and everything is spelled out, peerworkforce@pathwaysvermont.org.
Amazing. peerworkforce@pathwaysvermont.org.
I will note we only have 20 seats available for the training, and those spots are filling up quickly. But we do hope to host this training again in the near future. But yeah, I also just want to thank you, Ali. Like, you know, during this process of building this training, there were a lot of things happening around us, and I think like that weekly connect with you was helping to ground me a bit, you know, and it really was just like a beautiful process to build that training with you.
It was reciprocal, and I think also it was just, we did something really unique, and there was healing, everything happening, and questioning the system, you know, introspection, coming back into ourselves and thinking about life, about just everything. And it was good. And I also remember the end of the training when we put it together, we did a rundown with you, Jay. You remember? It was also really good, you understanding where these people are coming from, and also from the perspective, from the perspective of those who would be receiving it. And, you know, both trainings, the online and in person also, it was just great.
I mean,
like, great people. Those people need to come back to continue this conversation.
At that same time, you know, you were juggling a lot of things on city council, and, you know, I just, you know, making note that we were bearing witness to such a horrific moment in time. And it kind of came just naturally when we talked about decolonizing, because we were seeing colonization just happening around the world and various places, right? So I know this next training, we're doing some edits, we're adding some things, and I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to expanding and looking what we do with it in the future.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, decolonizing death and suicide. We have today wonderful, beautiful guests from all over the world. And Jay just came from where? Like Texas, you see? All the way from there here to continue on building and you know, making Vermont the better space it can be, you know? But my man Alex is a local guy, you know, very centered person, to love all religion, all people. And also, I think you're doing an amazing job just trying to build the bridge between black people in general in the city. I think it's some type of job that you're doing that you don't realize how important it is, but you being a glue, right? Let's unite with respect and dignity and make Vermont the better place it can be. Many people don't want to come here to this state, right? Because it's cold, but we don't move, we don't go anywhere, we stay. I could go with you like, over there in Texas, right? All right. So maybe in 30 seconds each, like, you know, say hi, thank you, or whatever you want to say, like, you know, last words, and then we close. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'm just grateful to be here, Ali. Thank you so much for having us, you know, and the opportunity to spread the word, our mission, what it is, the work we do. We're really passionate about it. And yeah, I really hope if you're interested in peer support, please reach out to us through the Peer Workforce Development Initiative. Yeah, thanks again.
Wonderful. Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Ditto what Alex said. Please do reach out to us, peerworkforce@pathwaysvermont.org. And really quickly, I remembered our other community partner for the mental health urgent care at CHC, the community health centers.
Excellent. I mean, they have a great mission, and just be the first people to know that I'll be joining their board this Thursday as a board member for the next 5 years. Because when they reach out, I couldn't say no. I use it, I utilize it, they do great work, right? But again, Pathway Vermont, thank you again for the great work that you do, and you do a lot. Peer respite, housing first, mental health, care program, you know, trainings and everything. But we could not say also, say goodbye without saying thank you to the Vermont Health and Learning for thinking outside of the box and working with these great people. Thank you guys all again. Thank you. Decolonizing Death and Suicide coming up very soon. And it will be with Pathway on April 11th, yes, at the Camp, Richard Camp Center. Thank you all so much. See you next month, Alice Corner.